Our next presentation comes from Gianfranco Guzziolo, who is responsible for global CRM at ASOP, including recognition and replenishment. Since joining ASOP in 2019, he's been transforming the brand's capabilities in how they directly engage with customers across the globe. Prior to ASOP, Gianfranco spent the majority of his career in agency side, working with brands as diverse as BMW, Adidas, BT, Disney, EasyJet, just to name a few. With a first degree in astrophysics, he enjoys explaining that engaging with customers in a relevant way is not rocket science. Unfortunately, Gianfranco could not be with us this afternoon, but I caught up with him just the other day.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon to you all, and I hope you're all safe and well wherever you are in the world. Skip, thanks for the introduction and for the invitation to share some more thoughts on, as you've just mentioned, Anagnorisis, but more of that later. So I've had the pleasure of being with ASOP now for about 2 years. And for those of you that don't know about ASOP, we offer skin, hair, body and home formulations. We're about 34 years old as a business, and actually with the creation of our founder, Dennis, who owned a hair salon in Melbourne, something to which Skip and I can both understand the need for those products. So Dennis was actually not over enamored with some of the products that he was using on his clients' hair, so decided to prepare his own products in his back room, and the rest is history. So we now have about 250 beautiful stores across the world, and our products can be found in counters in department stores, through our wholesale partners, and a number of our amenity partners such as hotels and restaurants. We're also fortunate to be part of an amazing parent group, Natura & Co. And we can say that Natura, Avon and The Body Shop are part of that family with us. When I joined, the remit for ASOP was a relatively simple one in theory, and it was to take our customer conversations beyond our stores. I often talk about the fact that we had CRM for 34 years prior to that, but it had always been confined to the interaction between our customers and our amazing retail consultants. But once our customers left the store, we didn't necessarily continue that conversation. So that was my remit, to continue that amazing experience that we offer our customers in our retail environments and translate that into a digital world. So a bit more about Anagnorisis, and hopefully I do pronounce that right after saying it for a couple of years. But essentially, this takes this reveal that was quite extensively used in ancient Greek plays, where the true identity of a character is revealed, where we now know that the hero is the heir to the throne, or the person that someone has just murdered is in fact their father. And quite simply, this describes our ambition to understand our customers' wants and needs and the issues and opportunities that they have with the brand. And from my perspective, what that allows us to do is to begin to understand how we might want to personalize, tailor or individualize a communication or experience with our customers. So when we start this process, there are 3 pillars that I tend to look at to moving towards becoming more personal. And I use the word personal as a collective word for personalization, individualization, or whatever word you might want to use. And I use these principles and I've used these principles in a number of roles. So one is that idea of customer understanding. What is the data that you have can help you understand those customer needs and wants. Secondly, looking at the customer journey. So really beginning to build a picture of that end-to-end off or online journey that our customers have with us as a brand, and use that as a foundation to understanding what we can deliver through CRM, and starting to understand the customer actions, the friction points, what they're thinking during each stage of that customer journey, and then help that to develop the CRM thinking behind the scenes. And thirdly, the customer data that we have. So actually, any new contact strategy that we develop on the back of the customer journey that we worked out. Actually, how do we use the data that we currently have? And often it's quite easier to start with the data that you have rather than thinking about the other data that you need to start collecting. But it provides that, combining with the customer understanding and customer journey, starts to help you understand what are the additional data points that you might want to try and collect or hypothesize around to try and develop your thinking in those areas. So if I spend a bit more time just talking about those three areas and the approach that I've used. So first of all, customer understanding. Now, for me, one of the key elements of customer understanding that I've used is this notion of recency, frequency, value models. Now, the models that customers that fall into and the ones that brands use come in many guises, and there's no real one-size-fits-all solution. But from my perspective, they do provide a basis for helping to understand not only the different types of customers that you have, and here you have an example of one of our segments, our hero customers, but also it becomes the starting point from which you can start to understand, yes, the segments and their purchase behavior, what they're buying, but also actually as a basis for understanding customer lifetime value and how to start communicating to different customer types and how you might want to start to personalize those communications and experiences. And in particular, when you start to combine some of these segments with other data points, such as engagement data, how they're engaging with your email or SMS communications, or indeed what's happening on the website, and combining those with things like customer satisfaction scores, it really starts to help you better understand your customers and have that much better and complete view of customers that we all aspire to. So I think that, understanding the segmentation at this level is a good starting point, and something that I've used in a number of organizations. The second area that we started to focus on was this idea of the customer journey at a CRM perspective. So here, what we've attempted to do with the customer journey is to make it really, really simple. I've seen customer journeys that are massively complex and actually doesn't really help your thinking. From my perspective, the simpler, the better. So what we've done is just to chunk up the customer journey into 6 very simple phases, all the way from when a customer might want to start to exploring the brand, to understand what we are about as a brand and start to understand more about our products, through purchase and then early use of that product, through to regular use, and actually then what we call replenishment. So actually, how do we start to replenish not only the products that our customers are buying, but also replenish the brand in terms of the way that customers are thinking about our brand if they've not purchased from us for a number of months or years. But what this allows us to do is then, and here's an example of one of those elements of the customer journey, it starts to help you create a picture of the customer mindset that I've just alluded to, but also what our role is in that journey, and to start to understand some of the touch points that the customer has in the customer journey in this explore stage here. But again, look at the drivers and key insights that you've generated through a variety of different data points that you might have, and we will use customer data from a transactional perspective. We'll use customer data by talking to customers, talking to our retail consultants, and getting anecdotal feedback from some of the surveys that we run with our customers pre and post purchase. And it starts to get to understand, what customers are thinking and feeling, what those friction points are, and also some of the barriers that customers have to using the product, the barriers that you have internally to try and overcome to deliver what might be a CRM opportunity. And the CRM opportunity for me here is not just about trying to maximize the cross-sell and upsell and churn prevention, but of course we want to do that, but also understand how we can improve the customer experience within all of this, and understand how communications that are driven from the CRM team can help alleviate some of those friction points. So very simple friction points like I've walked away with a product from my store and I actually can't quite remember how to use that product. Well, actually, the customer journey allows you to drill down and understand that friction point and to build out a tailored communication program that talks to that particular product set that a customer has walked out of the store with. And even very simple friction points about actually how do we help customers understand where their closest store is, because that's an element of personalization. By understanding where a customer lives, how can we encourage them to visit a local store and actually make it easy for them to understand the store's opening hours and the services that store offers. And then the third element is this idea about customer data and what customer data you need to fuel some of these journeys and the personalization and tailoring that we want to implement. There's a whole bunch of questions that I think that you want to start asking yourself. And I won't go through all of these, but I'll touch on 2 or 3 of these points. And the first key one for me is this notion of minimum viable data. Now, I think that we've all been guilty of being sucked into this idea of wanting to collect more and more customer data. But actually, I think that the way that I frame it is trying to understand what is the minimum amount of data you need to collect from a customer, whether that be explicitly or implicitly, to help move on the conversation and to help a customer solve an issue or problem that they have, or to meet a need or a want that that customer has. So have a think about what that minimum viable data is that you need, because I think that makes it easier as well, because then you're not trying to understand what are the 50 data points that I'm trying to collect to start on my CRM journey, because otherwise you'll never actually get anywhere. When you're collecting that data, actually, what is the value that it's driving, right? So what is the customer need that you're trying to solve, and what is the value that it's going to drive within the business? And what is the value exchange? So how do you prove to the customer or explain to the customer why you're collecting that data point? If you're collecting, birth dates, because actually that you want to tailor communications around an anniversary of birthday anniversary or an anniversary of how long a customer has been a customer of yours, then actually explain that to the customer, because that has massive implications in terms of how open the customer is with providing that data for you. How will you collect that data? Because that actually has a driver in terms of the quality of that data. So data around skin type, for example, which is important as you can imagine, for a skincare company, the quality of that data might be better if it is collected through a conversation through a consultant in the store, as opposed to being collected on a web form somewhere. So start thinking about some of those questions, but also think about the longer term implications of that data. So the quality of that data. Think about one day data being sat on your balance sheet, as brand is at the moment with some organizations, and think about the quality and not just the volume of the data that's sitting on that balance sheet. Think about that, and also think about how hyper-personal and how hyper-personalized your communications want to be, and whether there is actually a need to be that hyper-personalized. Think about the problem that you're trying to solve for that customer, and actually the cost involved with becoming hyper-personalized, and the implications for collecting that data, storing the data, creating content that allows you to deliver that personalized, that hyper-personalized customer journey. And then very quickly, just show you a couple of examples of how we've used or collected some of this data at ESOP. So on the left-hand side, one of the things we wanted to do was to make sure that we cemented the relationship between customer and store. So actually, as part of our transactional data sets, we know what store you've purchased on. So the thank you that you get in our welcome journey is a thank you not just from ESOP the brand, but from the store that you've purchased from. On the right-hand side, think about how you can actually use customers' preferences explicitly to tailor the communications. And the image you see on the right-hand side is actually our Father's Day opt-out email communication that we sent out initially in the Americas a couple of months ago. And again, it's just allowing the customers to dictate, to a certain extent, the frequency and the type of communication that they want to receive from you as a brand. And the last two is just finding the right balance between explicit and implicit data. So on the left-hand side is our preference center, which allows the customer to start to feed to you and understand, their view in terms of what type of content they want to be sent, whether that's information about cultural matters or tips and skill sets about how to blend particular products, which we encourage with our product set, but also very explicit needs around, this is the country that I'm living in, even though I bought in a store in another country, and this is the language that I want my communications coming in. But on the right hand side, actually, is some of the content that we have on our website. Actually, ultimately, actions speak louder than words. So the content that customers engage with, both within email, for example, but also on the website, actually should guide some of the communications and the types of content that we provide to customers to tailor and make more personal in terms of that customer journey. So hopefully that was just a very quick snapshot of where we are and some of my thoughts around anagnorisis and personalization and being personal. So thank you very much for spending this time with me, and over to you, Skip, I think.
Yes, over to me. I'm always just a bit too slow on hiding myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close your presentation, and so that we're big. Anyway, Gianfranco, that was brilliant. Thank you. Great presentation. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
And you mentioned, if you're going to dig, you're going to throw a bald dig in at the beginning. I got to respond. But funny enough, for Christmas, my wife bought me a gift certificate to the new hipster barbershop that opened up in our neighborhood. Haven't been there yet. She's like, go for a shave. So I think, when I'm away this summer, I'm not gonna shave and come back and see what they can do with it.
That was a subtle hint from your wife.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, no, because when I take this off, I get yelled at.
Uh-huh.
She doesn't like it gone. So I don't know. It's we've been together almost 25 years. Haven't figured her out yet. And getting it back to your presentation, I love that notion of data being a balance sheet item. It's clearly an asset to be leveraged to drive revenue or economic gain. That's the definition of an asset. So it's in a lot of respects, it's like a factory, and it should be an asset on the balance sheet. I was wondering during your presentation how we would depreciate it, but I think I'll leave that to the accountants to figure that out.
Yeah, let's do that.
So a couple of questions for you. I'm assuming, and you kind of alluded to it. Obviously, a lot of your sales are some portion of your sales are going to be through trade. How do you connect customers that you don't sell to directly, and how do you control that experience, and how do you build up that direct relationship?
Yeah, it's a good question. So obviously, we have a number of customers who acquire our products not directly from us. So one of the things that is not unique about us, but we're very proud of, is that, for example, in department stores, the counters that you'll see in department stores are actually our colleagues and consultants that work in that. So we control that experience very closely. And apart from the immediate location, that could very well be one of our stores. So we make sure that experience is as close as possible to being within one of our signature stores. With the wholesale partners, yes, customers do buy our products through the likes of Space NK in the UK, and also receive our products as gifts. So actually, we try and obviously attract those customers to have a direct relationship with ESOP. Less so with the wholesale partners, because actually there's a reason why we use those wholesale partners, perhaps because of location. So we do very little in terms of trying to, if you like, steal those customers from our wholesale customers to becoming a direct customer with ESOP. Our efforts are more around those customers that have received our products as gifts. So we're known as a very generous and and a destination for gifting. So actually, one of the things that we're trying to encourage is to acknowledge the fact that a customer, one of our customers, has bought a product as a gift. So actually, to thank that gift purchaser for sharing our products with friends, families, or work colleagues, and potentially to try and encourage the gift recipient to come to ESOP as a brand. Not necessarily because we want to give an incentive, because we're not actually famous for delivering incentives, and we use discounts very sparingly, if at all, in our portfolio of tools, but actually so that they can come to the brand, so that they can best understand how to use our products. So the incentive that we give is actually, if you come to us, we'll show you how best to make use of the products that you've just been gifted, so that you can appreciate that gift more than you could have done potentially otherwise. And then longer term, actually, we'll start thinking about how we can use our packaging, so the offline mechanism that we have, to encourage those customers that have received that gift to come to us to experience the brand. So, for example, with our gift sets last year, if you'd have bought one of our gift sets coming up to with what we call festive season in 2020, there was a QR code on the side of our gift sets, so that you could come to the website and we gave you, you could either download or view or listen to a short novel that was associated with each of our gift sets. So there's the ways that we kind of encourage the customer to come to us as a brand, to experience us as the brand, but also to learn more about our products and services. Does that help?
That makes perfect sense. First off, I love the fact that you don't immediately go to, it would be quite easy, and frankly, I think a bit lazy, if you knew it was a gift, especially a gift set. So let's throw a coupon in the gift set to encourage a second purchase. I like the whole notion of, especially, I clearly am not I don't have a hardcore skin regime, shall we say. But I know people that do. I used to work with somebody who is quite particular about his skin regime, and my wife has been getting a lot more into it, interestingly, since lockdown started. And so the whole notion of, I would never even think to give either of them a skincare product, because they've got their routine, they've got the regime, they got the products that they think work for them or that they are comfortable with. And putting another product into the mix, whilst it's kind of thoughtful, it also, I can see where it would also cause them a bit of stress. So I like that whole notion of, reach out to us, we'll tell you how to use the product, we'll make sure that it's appropriate for you. You're adding real value there.
Yeah, and I guess it's just talking to that notion that you've just mentioned. I think we need to be careful about how we introduce certain products during the customer journey, right? Because I think that often people who buy a body care product are kind of quite relaxed about the body wash that they use, whereas skincare is a much more personal choice, right? And it's something that is not entered into lightly with a brand. So I think that we want to encourage our marketeers to not necessarily, if I'm a new customer and I've come in and I bought a candle for my home or one of our body washes, that perhaps the next thing that we try and sell to you is not a skincare product, because actually that's often quite a leap of faith for a customer. So again, that level of personalization and becoming personal to a customer is actually understanding that it is not selling anything at all costs, because actually that could actually ruin the relationship. Yeah.
Cool. I love that. I love that a lot. Right. So the other thing that I really took away from your presentation was that whole notion of a common framework, common terminology. How important is that, do you think, to be used across the business when looking at customer journeys? And is that how, your customer journey is quite simple. And when I was looking at that, I thought, wow, there are a lot of stakeholders that probably didn't feel like they got represented in that. So is that common framework, that common terminology, does that help everybody kind of get through that?
Yeah, no. I think that a common framework and a common understanding of what everything means is useful. Right? So I've worked, in both small, medium, and large organizations. And in smaller organizations, it's a lot easier because it's a lot easier to kind of make sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of customer definitions. But I think that when you get to the size of ESOP and bigger, where you're working, across 23 markets across the world, different languages, different skill sets and experiences around CRM and playing around with customer data, having a common definition of, genuinely, having a common definition of what an active customer is, having a common definition of what CRM is and what it does, and what customer lifetime value is, actually allows you to have very much simpler conversations around the world. Having that common customer journey that can be shared across the globe allows you to have that common, consistent conversation across the regions, but also just makes things a lot easier when we're looking at what part of the journey we're trying to influence, not just from a CRM perspective, but also from a customer experience perspective as well. And although the yes, 6 stages is relatively simple, I don't believe in making things complicated. But the one thing that I did when we created the journeys, and when I looked at, for example, the automations that we have in the background, the one thing that we did at ESOP was actually to make sure that we took the regions, the various marketing teams on that journey with us. This was not a fait accompli that, here are the 6 stages of the journey. Here's what welcome looks like for you. It was a much more collaborative piece of work that we undertook, which is a very common theme within a brand like ESOP.
That's cool. We've only got just a couple of minutes left. So last question. I love the concept of the minimum viable data, but one of the things I see quite a bit is that marketers think they need a data point, or they genuinely need a data point. The customers are just not willing to give. It happens a lot in travel, where I want to know what your holiday budget is, and you're not going to tell me that. But if I ask you what kind of star rating hotel you want to stay in, that's a good proxy for that. Do you see that a lot? Do you have any good examples of using proxies to get the data that you need?
Yeah. So over the course of my career, I think proxies are a good way of collecting that, of having that proxy for a data point that you want, but also a very good starting point to have a conversation with a customer about that data point. And so if I explain what I mean by that, so as you can imagine, understanding skin type for a customer is important for every skincare company, not just for ESOP. But collecting that data is really often tricky, and it doesn't matter how many times you ask a customer, they may not volunteer that information. But actually, as a proxy for that is that you can start to understand the products that customer is buying currently or over a period of time. So at least then you can start to pick up and start to understand the skin type that a customer thinks they have, right? Because I could tell you that perhaps I might say I've got mature skin or combination skin. Actually, that's just me second guessing. But at least it starts as a conversation point, which is actually you could introduce a series of communications that talks to a customer about the fact that we think you have a combination skin. Actually, how can we help you understand in reality what skin type you have and whether you're using the right products from it? You talk about travel, so again, talking about tourists, how do you understand whether the customer that you have in that store who doesn't necessarily create a profile that gives you their location, how could you use data to understand if in fact they are a resident of that country? And so, of course, what a lot of brands use is an understanding of the origin of the credit card that was used by that customer, because then you understand that actually they shopped in London, but the credit card is actually a Chinese credit card, so it looks like they're potentially a tourist that is buying in that country. So yeah, there are lots of examples where you can use proxy for that data point, or to start a conversation about that data point that you want to acquire from a customer.
I love that. I love that notion of we think that you think X,
Yeah.
and now we're going to politely tell you you're wrong. But you'll come
Well,
out.
I'm not sure that I'd say we would tell you we're wrong, but yes, yeah. The we think you think yeah is an
Yeah,
interesting.
that's great. That's great. Gianfranco, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wonderful insights.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, Skip. Bye, everybody.